Have you ever wondered why some gardeners can put their plants in the ground weeks before anyone else, while your seedlings just shiver, turn purple, and refuse to grow? Welcome back to the channel. Today we are talking about a massive problem that ruins thousands of gardens every single spring. We are talking about putting tender seedlings into cold soil. But what if I told you that cold soil does not have to be a death sentence for your plants? In fact, I am going to share a professional secret that can actually make your plants stronger, tougher, and more productive by using the cold to your advantage. Yes, it sounds like a paradox. We usually think of cold dirt as the ultimate enemy, but by the end of this video you will know exactly how to manipulate your garden environment like a master farmer. Do you usually rush to plant outside at the first sign of sun, or do you wait until summer is practically here? Let me know your strategy down in the comments. Before we get into the secrets, we need to understand the battlefield. For thousands of years, farmers have been playing a dangerous game of chicken with Mother Nature. Plant too late, and you miss the harvest window before the autumn frosts arrive. Plant too early, and the freezing spring soil destroys everything you have worked for. When a seed germinates in a warm, cozy house, it expects a tropical paradise. It has soft leaves and delicate roots. When you suddenly transplant it into ground that just thawed from winter, the plant goes into massive biological shock. The water inside the soil is literally too thick and sluggish for the delicate roots to drink. This is the exact moment when most home gardeners fail. They see the sunshine, they feel the warm air, and they forget about the icy earth below. So let us start with the biggest trap of all. It is the myth of air temperature versus soil temperature. Every spring, gardeners look at their weather applications, see a warm, sunny day of 70 degrees, and run outside with their shovels. But here is the reality. Your plants do not live in the sky. Their roots live in the dirt. Think about walking barefoot on a tile floor in a chilly house during winter. The air around your head might feel perfectly warm, but your feet are absolutely freezing. That is exactly how your little tomatoes and peppers feel when you shove them into dirt that has not absorbed the spring heat yet. Soil takes a very long time to warm up compared to the air. It is a thick, dense, wet mass. While the air can heat up in just a few hours, the earth needs days or even weeks of consistent, direct sunshine to raise its internal temperature. If you ignore this and plant anyway, the shock to the root system is immediate. The plant shuts down to survive. You need to know what is happening beneath the surface. Now, let us look at what actually happens biologically to a root in cold soil. It is fascinating and slightly terrifying. When soil temperatures drop below 50 degrees, the chemical reactions inside the plant slow down to a crawl. The biggest issue is a phenomenon called phosphorus lockout. Phosphorus is the crucial element that plants use to build strong roots and transfer energy. But in cold dirt, phosphorus becomes chemically locked up. The plant simply cannot absorb it, even if you just dumped a whole bag of expensive fertilizer into the hole. Think of it like a frozen traffic jam on a highway. The cars are there, but nobody is moving anywhere. This is exactly why your tomato seedlings turn a dark, bruised purple color on their stems and leaves. That purple color is the universal distress signal for phosphorus deficiency caused by cold shock. You cannot fix this by adding more chemicals. You can only fix this by fixing the environment. Here is the first major professional secret to completely bypass this problem. It is all about pre-warming the soil using solar power. Commercial farmers do not just wait for the sun to slowly heat up a giant field. They actively trap the heat weeks before they ever put a plant in the ground. The easiest way to do this is by covering your garden beds with clear or black plastic sheeting about 3 to 4 weeks before your planting date. It acts exactly like the dashboard of your car sitting in a sunny parking lot. The sun rays go through the plastic, hit the soil, turn into heat, and then that heat cannot escape back into the atmosphere. Clear plastic actually heats the soil faster than black plastic because it creates a mini greenhouse effect right on the surface. But black plastic has the added benefit of blocking all the sunlight, which completely starves and kills any early spring weeds trying to steal your nutrients. Another brilliant strategy is utilizing the physics of raised garden beds. If you live in a notoriously cold climate with late springs, planting flat in the ground is playing on hard mode. Raised beds are elevated above the frost line, which means the sun hits them not just on top, but on all four sides. This dramatically increases the surface area for solar absorption. Furthermore, cold air is heavy and naturally sinks to the lowest point in your yard. By elevating your plants even just 12 to 18 inches, you are lifting them out of that invisible pool of freezing nighttime air. Think of it like sleeping on a high bed instead of directly on a drafty basement floor. The drainage is also superior. Wet soil stays cold much longer than dry soil. Because raised beds drain excess spring rain quickly, they heat up remarkably faster than the soggy ground below them. Let us take a moment to completely destroy a very popular internet myth. You might have read that you should water your outdoor seedlings with warm or hot water to heat up the cold soil. Please, never do this. It is a massive waste of time, and it can actually damage your plants. When you pour warm water onto a large patch of freezing dirt, the heat dissipates almost instantly. It is like trying to melt a frozen swimming pool with a single cup of hot tea. It does absolutely nothing to change the overall ambient temperature of the earth. Even worse, if the water is too warm, you risk boiling the microscopic root hairs that are essential for water absorption. Stick to water that is roughly the same temperature as the environment to avoid causing additional shock. You cannot fight nature with a watering can. You have to use passive solar energy and smart structural planning instead. Your choice of plants matters just as much as your soil temperature. You must select cold, hardy varieties if you want to push the boundaries of early spring. Genetics are everything here. If you try to plant a melon or a tropical pepper in cold soil, it will simply rot and die, no matter what tricks you use. But there are specific varieties of vegetables bred over generations to survive terrible weather. For example, there are Russian and Siberian varieties of tomatoes that can handle temperatures dropping into the 30s without flinching. Kale, spinach, and peas actually prefer the cold and will taste much sweeter if grown in chilly soil. When you are buying seeds or young plants, always look for words like early, cold-tolerant, or short season on the label. Matching the right plant to the right temperature zone is half the battle won before you even pick up a trowel. The transition process is critical. You cannot just take a plant from a 70-degree living room and stick it into 50-degree dirt. That is a recipe for disaster. This brings us to the crucial process called hardening off. Hardening off is like sending your plants to a training camp. About 2 weeks before planting, you take your seedlings outside for just 1 or 2 hours a day in a shaded, protected spot. Then you bring them back inside. Every day you slightly increase their time outside and their exposure to the sun and wind. This slow transition actually changes the cellular structure of the plant. The stems grow thicker, the leaves develop a waxy coating to protect against wind chill, and the roots prepare for cooler nights. It is exactly like training for a marathon. You do not just run 26 miles on your first day. You build up your endurance slowly. Let us talk about the magic of thermal mass. This is an ancient technique that still works incredibly well today. Water is one of the best substances on Earth for holding on to heat. During the day, water absorbs solar radiation. At night, as the air gets cold, the water slowly releases that heat back into the environment. You can use this to protect your seedlings in cold soil. Take empty plastic milk jugs, paint them black, fill them with water, and place them right next to your delicate plants in the garden. Throughout the day, the black jugs will soak up the sun. At night, they will act like tiny outdoor radiators, keeping the air and soil directly around your seedling just a few degrees warmer. This tiny difference is often all it takes to prevent a late frost from killing your harvest. It is a free, simple trick that professional growers use on a massive scale. Creating microclimates is another tool you need in your arsenal. A cloche is essentially a miniature personal greenhouse for a single plant. Historically, farmers used heavy glass bell jars to cover early crops. Today, you can make your own by simply cutting the bottom off a clear plastic water bottle and placing it over your seedling. Push it slightly into the cold soil so it does not blow away. This completely blocks the freezing spring wind, which is often more damaging than the cold air itself. The clear plastic allows the sun in, warming up that tiny pocket of air and the small circle of soil underneath it. Just remember to take the cap off the bottle during sunny days. If you leave it completely sealed when the sun is blazing, you will accidentally cook your plant alive. It is like sitting in a parked car with the windows rolled up on a summer day. We need to dive into the invisible world of soil microbiology. Your garden is alive. It is packed with billions of beneficial bacteria and fungi that feed your plants. But just like bears in winter, these microbes hibernate when the soil is cold. Because the microbes are asleep, they are not breaking down organic matter into nutrients. This means your soil is temporarily dead in the early spring. Even if you have rich compost, the plants cannot eat it without the microbes acting as the chefs. To wake them up, you need to raise the soil temperature using the plastic trick we talked about earlier. You can also give the soil a boost by watering with a mild, room-temperature compost tea. This introduces active living biology directly to the root zone, kickstarting the food web even if the surrounding dirt is still a bit chilly. One of the most common ways people kill seedlings in cold dirt is actually by drowning them. Cold soil does not evaporate water very fast. It stays wet and heavy for a remarkably long time. When you water a plant heavily in cold conditions, the water fills all the tiny air pockets in the dirt. Roots need oxygen just as much as they need water. If the soil is freezing and saturated, the roots literally suffocate and begin to rot. It is like wearing wet, heavy wool socks outdoors in the snow. Your feet will freeze twice as fast. When gardening in early spring, you must reduce your watering schedule significantly. Only water when the top 2 inches of the soil are completely dry to the touch. It is always better for a seedling to be slightly thirsty in cold dirt than to be soaking wet. Here is a counterintuitive secret about organic mulch. We are always told to mulch our gardens heavily with straw or wood chips to protect the soil. But in early spring, mulch is actually your enemy. Think about a thick winter blanket. A blanket insulates. If you leave thick mulch on your garden beds in the spring, it acts as an umbrella, blocking the sun from hitting the dark soil. The ground underneath will stay frozen and cold for weeks longer than bare dirt. The professional move is to rake all your mulch away from the planting zones as soon as the snow melts. Expose the dark earth directly to the sun so it can absorb the heat. Once the soil has warmed up to about 60 degrees and your plants are happily growing, then you can push the mulch back around the stems to conserve moisture for the hot summer. Let us talk about the ultimate biological cheat code for cold stress. It is called mycorrhizal fungi. This is a special type of beneficial fungus that physically attaches itself to the roots of your seedlings. It acts as an extension of the root system, reaching deep into the soil where the plant cannot go. When your seedling is stressed by cold soil and cannot absorb nutrients, this fungus acts as a delivery service. It finds phosphorus and water and pumps it directly into the plant. In exchange, the plant gives the fungus a little bit of sugar. You can buy powdered mycorrhizae at almost any garden center. Just sprinkle a tiny bit directly onto the roots of your seedling right before you put it into the cold planting hole. It gives your young plants a massive survival advantage during those tough early spring weeks. You cannot ignore the wind. Wind chill has a devastating effect on young plants trying to survive in cold soil. When a cold breeze constantly hits a tiny stem, it rips the moisture right out of the leaves. This causes severe dehydration, even if the soil is soaking wet. The roots are too cold to pump water up, and the wind is stealing water from the top. It is a fatal combination. You need to build windbreaks. You do not need to build a massive brick wall. Something as simple as sticking pine branches into the ground around your delicate plants can break the wind perfectly. You can also use tightly woven netting or even cardboard boxes positioned on the windy side of the garden bed. Blocking the wind alone can make the local temperature feel 5 to 10 degrees warmer for your struggling seedlings. Fertilizing in cold weather requires a completely different approach. As we discussed, roots cannot absorb heavy granular fertilizers when the dirt is chilly. If you dump heavy synthetic nitrogen into the hole, it will just sit there, and when it finally rains, it will wash away or burn the roots when the soil finally warms up. The professional secret here is foliar feeding. This means feeding the plant through its leaves instead of its roots. You mix a very weak, diluted solution of liquid organic fertilizer, like fish emulsion or kelp extract. Then you spray it directly onto the top and bottom of the leaves early in the morning. The plant absorbs the nutrients right through its skin, completely bypassing the cold, sluggish root system in the dirt below. It is like getting nutrients through an IV drip. If you are determined to plant tomatoes early, you absolutely must use the trench planting method. Tomatoes are unique because they can grow roots all along their main stem. Instead of digging a deep vertical hole straight down into the freezing depths of the earth, you dig a long, shallow, horizontal trench. You strip off the bottom leaves of your tall tomato seedling and lay the plant down sideways in the trench, gently bending just the top few inches of leaves above the soil. The top few inches of soil are always the warmest because they get the most sun. By planting horizontally, you keep the entire root system in the warmest possible layer of dirt. It is a brilliant way to trick the plant into thinking the whole world is warm, resulting in massive, rapid root development. For serious early spring growers, cold frames and low tunnels are non-negotiable tools. A cold frame is basically a sturdy wooden box with an old glass window on top. You place it facing south to catch the sun. It creates an incredibly warm, protected environment right on the ground. You can plant seeds inside a cold frame a full month before your regular outdoor dates. Low tunnels are similar but made of flexible PVC pipes bent into hoops and covered with special agricultural fabric called row cover. This white fabric lets light and rain through, but traps the heat radiating from the soil at night. It acts like a thermal blanket. Commercial farmers cover miles and miles of crops with these low tunnels to survive random spring snowstorms and keep the soil temperature consistently high. But what happens if you make a mistake? You planted early, and a severe unexpected frost is forecasted for tonight. Do not panic. There are emergency rescue tactics. First, cover your plants with whatever you have: old bed sheets, cardboard boxes, or plastic buckets. Do not let the covering touch the leaves directly if possible. But here is the real secret. If a frost hits and you forgot to cover them, you still have one last chance. Get out there right before the sun rises, while the frost is still frozen on the leaves. Take your garden hose and gently mist the frozen plants with cold water. This sounds crazy, but the water will slowly melt the frost before the direct sunlight hits it. It is the rapid thawing from the hot morning sun that actually bursts the plant cells. Slowing down the thaw can literally bring a frozen plant back from the brink of death. Finally, the most important tool in your entire gardening kit is not a shovel. It is a soil thermometer. Stop guessing. Stop looking at the calendar. Stop listening to your neighbor who always plants on Mother's Day. Every single yard is different. The south side of your house might be 10 degrees warmer than the north side. Go to the store, spend $10 on a heavy-duty meat thermometer or a dedicated compost thermometer. Stick it roughly 3 to 4 inches deep into your garden beds in the early morning. If it reads below 50 degrees, do not plant your warm weather crops like tomatoes or squash. Wait, if it reads 60 degrees or higher, you are safe to start planting. Knowledge is power. Removing the guesswork is the absolute biggest difference between an amateur who loses plants every year and a professional who gets a massive harvest. Gardening is deeply psychological. We all get spring fever. After a long, dark winter, we just want to get our hands dirty and see green life again. We push the limits, we break the rules, and often our plants pay the price. But nature always provides clues if you are willing to look for them. Instead of fighting the cold soil, observe what is naturally happening around you. Look at the weeds. Dandelions are brilliant indicators. When you see dandelion seeds germinating and actively growing, that means the soil biology has woken up. It means the earth is finally ready to support life again. Gardening is not about forcing your will upon the earth. It is about working in harmony with the physical laws of temperature, moisture, and biology. Be patient, use the solar heating tricks, protect your roots, and your spring garden will be absolutely unstoppable. And there you have it, the ultimate twist. The cold soil is not an invincible enemy meant to destroy your garden. It is simply an environmental puzzle. By using clever techniques like clear plastic solar heating, horizontal trench planting, and protective thermal mass, you can actually trick nature and give your plants a massive head start. You now know that throwing your delicate seedlings into freezing dirt is a recipe for phosphorus lockout and purple, stunted leaves. But you also hold the professional secrets to bypass this completely. Always remember to check your soil thermometer, wake up your soil microbes, and never ever water with hot water. Thank you so much for watching and learning with us today. If you found these secrets valuable and want to save your garden this year, please hit that subscribe button, give the video a like, and share it with a friend who always plants too early. Now, I have a question for you. What is the one vegetable you are most excited to grow this season, and are you going to try the milk jug heating trick? Drop your answers down in the comments below, and I will see you in the next video.